Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick, your host. And before we get into today's topic, I'd like to give a shout out to Alan Elterman from Apt Electronics. If you've listened to the show before, you know that we got scammed by an HVAC company, and Apt, ABT, came into the rescue. Well, I was shopping for a new printer because I figured out if I buy a large format printer, what happens is it's less expensive than if I go to Staples and spend $2 a brochure. So I went in and I saw Alan, and they didn't have what I wanted in stock. And he's like, all right, well, email me what you're looking for, and I'll if I can find it, if our vendor has it. So I emailed him, responded immediately. Yes, we have it. This is the price. We went back and forth a little bit on logistics, and he ordered it for me. Cool, no problem. Well, it came in, and he contacted me right away. He said it was delivered damaged. We're not giving it to you. We're going to get another one. And that one came a couple days ago. Here's the great thing. Not only was the guy very communicative, and it was very important to let me know, at least to me, to let me know what was going on, the day that he contacted me, which was a week ago Saturday, he said, hey, your printer's in. Would you like us to deliver it for you? I didn't pay for delivery. I was like, sure. Several hours later, it showed up at my doorstep. Now, I was not available at the time. The guy, and it's a huge printer. And the guy even carried it into our house for us. So, again, Alan Elterman at Apt. His email address is alan, A-L-A-N, .elterman, E-L-T-E-R-M-A-N, @apt.com. He is the Apple Store manager there. So, but very helpful. I didn't buy an Apple product, but very helpful, very knowledgeable. If you have any questions, he is a very good resource for you to go to. Once again, that's Alan Elterman with Apt Electronics. And now we're going to transition into the topic of the show, which is mental health. There is a gentleman, his name's Daniel Bahner, and I got a email. I don't remember if it was just an email shout out or if it was a newsletter that said he is going to be speaking at a mental health Shabbat. And for the people that aren't Jewish, Shabbat means Sabbath. So he gave a presentation last week on Sabbath, and I thought it was great. I wasn't able to attend it, but the idea was absolutely fabulous. So I want to welcome Daniel to the show. Daniel, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell everyone, what's your personal origin story? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So originally I'm from the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm an elder millennial, so I'm of that generation that bridged before the digital age to now. So as a kid, I was drawn to stories like Greek myths, fairy tales, Disney, The Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, and The Lord of the Rings. I was also a Jewish person in an area that there was not a lot of Jewish people. And so my small conservative movement synagogue where I was bar mitzvah became a really important space for me to express my Jewish themselves, their past struggles, and how their relationships of their past impact their present, and just generally help them to become the best versions of themselves. I'm particularly interested in complex trauma and the impacts of marginalization of mental health, and that ultimately is what led me to JCFS Chicago, where I joined in April of 2005, so this past year. So I've been here about 6 months.
Awesome. You said 2005. I think you meant 25. That's okay. I mean,
Yes.
no worries.
Yes, I meant 2025, yes.
I want to unpack. Awesome. I want to unpack some of the things that you said. You said you grew up in Cincinnati, and I may be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Cincinnati have a rabbinical school?
It does, yes. I believe it's, though, connected to the Reform movement, and since my family was raised at a conservative movement synagogue, our synagogue was much smaller than some of the Reform areas.
Okay.
Reform synagogues in town, yeah.
I'm just asking because you said it wasn't a Jewish area, yet they have...
In my suburb, yeah. So the suburb that I grew up
You said
outside
suburb.
of Cincinnati itself, kind of like if you would imagine the suburbs of Chicago and Chicagoland.
Right.
I was probably like 30 minutes north of Cincinnati. My synagogue was in Hamilton, Ohio.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm thinking, well, you get it. I don't have to explain it. That's terrific. The fact that you're really helping people who may have similar struggles as you did is fantastic. I'm honored. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. And in a smaller sense, I have a similar experience where I help people in areas that I've struggled with as well, and later mastered, or at least I'm trying to master. Because as you know, psychology isn't a snap of the fingers. Oh, guess what? Now you don't have PTSD anymore. Well, no, you always have PTSD. So I greatly, greatly appreciate your efforts and everything that you've done. And of course, I did research on you before the show. And can you explain the difference when you're talking to people? And communication is one of the things I study. I study body language. What's the difference between asking, "What's wrong with you?" and "What happened to you?"
Yeah, absolutely. So in my approach to my work, I understand that all of us have been through difficult times, right? So in response to complicated relationships with families, friends, or communities, or even events outside of our control, we adopt certain core beliefs about the world, ourselves, and may develop behaviors, all of which were meant to protect us. Most of those behaviors are meant to protect us. Many times those behaviors may have worked in some way, but they aren't doing that any longer, especially if maybe those behaviors started in childhood and now we're adults. If we can understand how the things that happen to us shape us, we can better change our thoughts, emotions, and behavior to react, and hopefully those actions are more aligned with our values and our overall goals. So each of us is kind of reacting to all of that with each other. What might not make sense to one of us and somebody else, if we are the ones doing it, it might make sense to us given the things we've been through.
Very good. That's very fair. Have you dealt with anyone where a person who is just, I want to say average person, but is dealing with someone else that is really the problem, and then the average person thinks there's something wrong with them? Have you dealt with that in your travels?
Yeah, I think we all have in different ways, right? I think we all have our own perspectives, and I think that's where I was getting at with like each of us are kind of interacting with everybody else's stuff. So even us, who we might consider average, we probably have been through stuff too. Maybe we're not neurodivergent or we don't have the same degree of trauma, but we still have like the things in our personalities that make us different than everybody else that we've responded to. So I think ultimately it's about boundaries. It's about talking to people that you trust about what you're going through. I don't think it's helpful just to take whatever anybody else says as face value.
Daniel, you have the credential of LPC after your name, and that's Licensed Professional Counselor. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I have education questions. You went back to school and you got a second master's degree. Mazel tov, first of all.
Thank you.
Why pursue, and this is a personal question, why pursue a second master's degree instead of a doctorate, since you already had one? I'm very curious on that.
Yeah, I think part of it was just logistics of where I was at in my life. The pandemic, to get a little bit more personal, happened in a time in my life when I had left Keshet and I was in the middle of a job search. And so I was in final round interviews for various things that early 2020
Cool. That's just me. I also have a master's degree, and every so often I contemplate going back to school, and I struggle with that as well. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that. I will.
This wasn't right for me.
That's terrific. I want to point out to the audience that Daniel's a little bit of a hero, and he's probably thinking, "What?" The people that had to go to work to help other people, like what you said you did. I'm going to screw this up, but pick up orders and all that. We did that because we were scared, and people like you, grab your bootstraps, went to work and helped people like me alleviate their anxiety by not having to shop and interact with people. So I thank you for that. That's one of those
I appreciate that.
one of those background type work that nobody appreciates, but I appreciate it. We used it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you involved with No Shame on You or NAMI or any groups like that?
At JCFS, we regularly partner with No Shame on You to support our community. We've developed multiple programs together, including a multi-session curriculum on teen resiliency and programs for adults on supporting friends, family members, and coworkers who are struggling with mental health challenges. We also partner with many other organizations in the Jewish community and beyond, including NAMI, Midwest Refuah, Upward Community, the ARC, CJE Senior Life, the Ezra Multi-Service Center, the JTC, JUF, synagogues, Jewish day schools, Jewish camps, and more. The JCFS facilitates the Orthodox Network, a collaboration of social service providers and Jewish agencies who work in partnership to improve services to the Orthodox community in metropolitan Chicago. And we also facilitate JCERT, which is the Jewish Community Emergency Response Team, a collaborative effort of multiple agencies to respond to mental health needs following a crisis situation. So, yes, we definitely do partner with many other organizations working to support the mental health in our community.
Awesome. I've had No Shame on You on the show, and
Okay.
I've been a speaker at the Lake County NAMI chapter as well as the state conference on managing agitation and other people. So I love the two groups. They're absolutely fantastic groups, and they really, believe me, I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it, but they're out there and they really help people. And speaking of helping people, when you spoke at Beth Judea, what is a mental health Shabbat?
A mental health Shabbat is similar to other kind of theme Shabbats, where usually a speaker is invited from outside of the community or sometimes from within the community to talk about a specific topic. So this was mental health Shabbat. I know there have been addiction Shabbats where somebody comes and talks about addiction and recovery, LGBTQ inclusion Shabbats, inclusion for special needs. So really just come and during either the Friday night or Saturday morning, during like the sermon section or where you give the drosh, really just talking about that particular topic. And so that's what I did when I went to Beth Judea to speak on mental health. So I joined them on a Friday night, talked to them a little bit about the work that I do at JCFS, and then gave them some tips for how to work on their own mental health and make sure that they're taking care of themselves. Sometimes a particular Shabbat is timed to a certain Torah portion. Maybe the themes of the Torah portion speak to that particular topic. So yeah, that's what the mental health Shabbat is. It was really a lovely evening. We kind of mingled a little bit afterwards and just was talking about mental health, and always love to talk more about that with folks, especially during this dark time of the year when that just adds so much happiness to our life.
Well, when you say dark time of the year, are you talking sun setting early?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right,
Yes,
cool.
the darkness, the actual darkness, the lack of sunlight. I don't know about you, but it definitely makes everything harder.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, my wife said something like, I left and it's dark and I came home when it's dark. I'm going to give you a little secret. Are you ready?
Yes.
The JCFS office on Gulf Road is basically at Laramie and Gulf. I grew up 2 blocks south of Gulf, 1 block over. I used to walk in front of the building all the time. So definitely familiar with the area. Definitely, I'm a nice Jewish boy from Skokie, as they say. Can we talk about last 2 years with the Israeli war? How has that affected mental health with Jewish people in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, the community responded with shock and horror, the brutal attack on October 7th. And as the war continued, the impact on the mental health of our community members varied based on so many factors, including their connections to Israel, whether they have family members or close friends in Israel,
Terrific. What final thoughts can you offer about what you do? And maybe I don't live in your world. I live in my world, and everybody knows me in my world because I live in my own little world. That's a joke, guys. But what did I not ask you? What's an important point that you would like to make or talk about? The floor is yours.
Mental health, right, is so foundational to everything, right? But a lot of it not just is influenced by our past, but also by external events that we maybe don't have a lot of control over. And that's where JCFS, as an agency here in Chicago, can really support everyone in our community. I am just part of one of many departments at JCFS, and so I'd like to share a little bit about the other types of services we offer that can support folks going through these really difficult times that are impacting their mental health, but in order for their mental health to improve, partially they need their physical circumstances to change too, or to the stress of that to be alleviated. And so many of the departments at JCFS Chicago can help with that. So there is the JBS Career and Employment Services. There's HIAS, which offers immigration and citizenship services. Of course, there's mental health services through our counseling psychological team, which includes the Kaufman Wolf Center for Trauma and Resilience. There's also the NAP School and Yeshiva for students with emotional or behavioral challenges. Therapeutic services for children and adolescents. There's response for teens. And then there is, of course, my work, which is housed within the Jewish Community Services Department. So we, as a department, serve our community through a Jewish lens, providing information and support related to issues such as abuse prevention, addiction and recovery, adoption and family building, grief and loss, mental health education, and we have community chaplains who provide pastoral support. As I mentioned earlier, the Synagogue Community Partnership Program within Community Services provides JCFS staff liaisons to partner synagogues through Chicagoland in order to connect congregants to human and social service agencies around the area that can also support them through difficult moments such as housing, insecurity, food insecurity, legal assistance, employment, case management, things like that.
Very good. Maybe I should have asked you, what don't you do? I'm kidding. That's very robust, and I'm thrilled that those resources are out there.
Yeah, they're really great.
Can you share your contact information, social media handles, how people can get a hold if they have a need or they want to explore more?
Yeah, absolutely. So JCFS has a number of locations, physical locations. There's the Cooper Center and the NOP School just west of Rogers Park, our office in Skokie, which is where I'm located, and our central office downtown. If you want to learn more about any of our programs, you can visit our website at jcfs.org. Our Instagram handle is at jcfs_Chicago, or you can also find us on Facebook. You can also email ask@jcfs.org or call 855-275-5237.
Daniel, it's been an absolute delight having you on the show. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with all of our listeners. And quite frankly, I hope that nobody needs the services because then everybody's happy and healthy. But if they do, all of this will be listed on YouTube with all the websites and the links and all that good stuff to make it easy for people to access the services that they need. Daniel, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Daniel Bahner from the JCFS. We appreciate his time on the show. I'm going to take you back to a memory that kind of popped in. It pops in my head every December. Working in law enforcement, we would have one specific lieutenant who would run the roll call in the morning, and he would go over the reports of burglaries. And he said this over and over and over, which is, 'tis the season. So let me give everyone kind of a rundown on what happens with home burglaries, which is where your home is broken into when you are not there. A house cannot be robbed. A robbery is a personal crime, meaning they're robbing an individual. A burglary means they're stealing from a property. So we're talking about burglaries. Well, in December, a lot of people go out to holiday parties. It happens. I've got dueling holiday parties. I've got all day long work holiday parties with different divisions, and people tend to not be home unless they're hosting, of course. And what burglars end up doing is they will go to someone's home when they're out to dinner, when they're out to a party in the evenings.
An average burglary takes about 11 minutes. The burglars make a beeline right to the master bedroom, which is where most people keep their valuables. So how can you make your home burglar proof? Well, it's already robbery proof because you can't rob a property. And that's kind of a little joke. My house got robbed. No, your house got burglarized. But a lot of people, the common vernacular is robbery. In any event, here are some steps that you can take to reduce the chances of a burglary. First of all, if you have a sliding glass door, you can get a dowel rod from Menards, Home Depot, hardware store of choice, and put it in the track so people cannot jimmy the door and slide it open. As far as your front doors, a deadbolt lock is always preferable. And these deadbolt locks come with 1/2 inch screws, which is very easy to kick in a door. I have done it. And I am not athletic, that is for sure. So if you were to go and get 3-inch plus screws from same hardware store and replace those 1/2 inchers with 3 inchers, the door jamb will get fastened to the door frame, which is fastened to the home. Very difficult to kick down a door. Now, it's not just where the lock, the thing slides into the lock. You actually have to also replace the hinges because you can kick down the door on the hinge side. So that's a $5 fix, unless you have to hire someone and then there's labor involved. Another thing you can do is have timer lights. I had them since I was growing up. Now that's more Amazon Echo controlled or smart home controlled. I have timers. I have outside lights. They come on when it gets dark. And I also have motion sensor lights, which is another good thing. If you have a garage, keep your car in the garage. If you don't have a garage or you want to park outside, make sure your car is locked. When I worked for the Glencoe Police and Fire Department, there was a lot of burglaries to vehicles. And really, it was kids. It wasn't like a nefarious gang or anything like that. It was kids. And these people would leave their car doors open. I don't have to lock my car. This is Glencoe. And then a week later, the same people, their cars would get burglarized again. And back in the 90s, the car burglars would rip out the stereo system. That really doesn't happen. And then there was these fake faces you put on, and so that no one actually rips out your system. And it's kind of silly today because we're all streaming and nobody really cares about a radio system. But these same people kept getting their change stolen, kept getting their garage door opener stolen. And if you keep your garage door open in your car, that's direct access into your home. You can layer your defenses, people. And when I say defenses, I don't mean violence. What I mean is outside lights, double-sided deadbolt doors, 3-inch screws on the doors, putting a dowel rod in the track of a sliding door, timer lights. A dog is a good deterrent. A burglar alarm is a good deterrent. Cameras are really not a deterrent. They're more of an investigative tool, although a lot of people have them. And the biggest thing, the biggest tip, don't post your pictures from the party while you're at the party. Same thing as while you're on vacation, don't post pictures of you on vacation. You are broadcasting to the world. I am not home. Come rob my house. And that was kind of a joke. Come burglarize my house. I can't tell you how many people post photos in real time showing that nobody is in their home. That is really top-notch. Social media has revolutionized society, and you can post your pictures. Do it after the party so nobody knows when you're home or when you're not home, as opposed to, look where I am right now, and then guess what? Your house gets broken into. And it's not a good feeling. A lot of people need psychological counseling, which goes back to the first part of this segment, and it is a violation. It is not a good feeling to be the victim of a crime. And luckily, there are private practices out there. There's organizations such as JCFS, NAMI, all sorts of different places to help people recover psychologically from trauma. whether they experienced it directly or indirectly. As always, I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season from our family to your family. Stay tuned for the second half of the episode. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.